I hope we are the reason some people can never raise capital again. Like, simple as that. I also hope that our company is the reason where people who may have never been able to compete on a marketing or a visibility standpoint get found because of their reviews.
What are some crazy stories, GP, maybe LP stories you can share, come top of mind that you've seen in growing this platform?
It's really tough. I hear a lot of stories too that I had somebody who reached out to me and said, I'm about to lose 100K. I didn't think it was possible for real estate to ever go to zero. I thought it was had value. That person didn't understand how like the equity stack worked.
Welcome back to another episode of Peaks Profits. Today's guest is Pat Zingarella, CEO of Invest Clearly. Pat created Invest Clearly to bring greater trust, transparency, and accountability into private real estate investing through verified investor reviews. His platform empowers investors to make better informed decisions and helps operators differentiate themselves by credibility and not hype. Pat is passionate about changing how capital is raised in private real estate by putting transparency first. Pat, it's great to have you on the show, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, great to be here. Excited. That was a great intro.
You know, we do try to big you up a little bit in the intro. Everything you're doing, though, Pat, in the whole world of transparency in private real estate is fantastic. Your platform is fantastic. Brian and myself have both used your platform to identify partners, operators to work with, as well as asking our investors as well whether they'd be comfortable leaving reviews about our organization on there. So I guess that brings us to the first real question is why? Like what brought you to wanting to build a platform like Invest Clearly, and how has that process gone so far?
Yeah, for sure. So it's an interesting journey where it almost seemed like all roads led here organically. So my background, my corporate life, I was in corporate sales, and that's how I got into real estate, right? I was in a sales role. We were actually what the company did is we provided advisory services to startup CEOs on product development, go-to-market strategy. I was in the sales role and constantly listening to the podcast, right? Constantly the podcast, dipped my feet into some small multifamily, got crushed on my first deal. That was like my first step into it. And this company, they were the global leader in IT research and advisory services, and objectivity was at the forefront of everything. They had to, right? They had to be neutral because they were advising both buyers and sellers of technology. And if they crossed that line, the whole business model would fall apart. And I say that to kind of get into our business model and Invest Clearly down the road and how we do that. But at this company, we also had a subsidiary, which was a software review website. And so companies that making big software purchasing decision would go in and read reviews from other chief information officers to help with their decision whether or not to invest or to purchase. And so during that time, I ended up connecting with an individual in the commercial real estate world who was very quickly rising in the media ranks, right? Becoming an influencer. He was the guy. I was in a mastermind with him. I latched onto him, started doing some work for him at home. I was cold calling people, just really trying to learn what he was learning because he was the guy. I eventually left my job, went to go work for him, took a 75% pay cut, went long distance with my fiance, and the guy turned out to commit a ton of fraud. Ended up fleecing like 60 investors, recently indicted on $35 million worth of wire fraud, insane stuff. And so he's actually supposed to be sentenced this week. And so during that time, I left and I started doing some sales consulting. Before I left, what was interesting is I was able to warn my inner circle about this guy. But if there was a bigger resource where I could have shared this publicly, like Invest Clearly, I probably could have prevented a lot of bankruptcies and honestly overall disasters. And so when I left that individual, I started doing some sales consulting. One of my clients was an accredited investor lead gen company. And what they would do is they would build funnels and run ads for GPs. And so I would spend my time talking to 5-10 GPs all in the same asset class within a week. And I had no idea how to differentiate between any of them. And I felt that was pretty smart, but I was like, what is the difference here? And then I was thinking about becoming an LP myself. And so I started doing some research. I was like, all right, where is a place where all these guys exist in one place so I could actually make the comparison? Didn't exist, right? At that point in time, I was actually breaking down SEC filings to see what GPs were out there. And at the same time, I was like, all right, well, where are all the deals in one place? That didn't exist. And I was like, okay, well, where are some of the people sharing their experiences with these guys? That didn't exist. And I was like, all right, well, how do I evaluate these guys? And then every document on what to ask GP was written by a GP. And I was like, okay, this doesn't really do much for objectivity. And so those three roads were like, okay, let's build this thing. And that's how we ended up with Invest Clearly.
I love that, and I didn't realize that story, your background story, that we've met on calls before, and again, like Chris
Yeah.
said, we've used the platform, but didn't realize that you went through that experience. But it's funny. That's I feel like I don't know. I watch Shark Tank. You kind of have like the
Yeah.
entrepreneur mindset. Like you go on things, and it's like it's something in your life that happens to you that you're like, hey, something's not there. There's some type of missing, whether it be platform or some type of like it could be such a silly invention, right? Where people are like, oh, and then it gets created because of something that's lacking maybe in your personal experience. And it sounds like that's what you went through, and you've built a great platform now from that, which is awesome, and you're scaling it. And so, with that said, a lot of our listeners are looking and exploring. Into becoming an LP, really doing due diligence. And I think a lot of times at the beginning of this journey, you lack some educational information around what's really out there. You think real estate can't go wrong, maybe you think this deal's got to be X, Y, and Z. Here's the marketing slick, and everything looks and checks out like this is going to be a home run. And there's a lot of other components that you need to be doing your due diligence into prior to maybe investing into a deal. And so, to break all that down, can you just explain from an LP level what is Invest Clearly? Like you just kind of talk through the concept of building the platform and what people should be looking out for. But if you go onto the website right now, investclearly.com, what should investors and GPs expect from your platform that you're building?
Yeah, for sure. So bottom line, what we are is we are a place for LPs to find and evaluate GPs based on the experiences of other LPs, and I'll explain what that means. For GPs, it's a place to earn more investors by leading with trust and transparency, right? That's the main value prop of the site for both parties. For an LP, the hardest thing that I experienced that we've now built into LP back then was like, first of all, how do you find these guys, right? And because what I really saw with the journey of the LP was like you meet someone in a referral based capacity. Somebody knows somebody, or you connect with them at an event. You then wait for them to have a deal that matches your criteria, and then if it doesn't match your criteria, you have to wait until they do have a deal or repeat steps 1 through 3. So I was like, all right, well, what if we reverse engineered that? And we had a comprehensive list of every GP that's ever existed. That's a long-term goal where they can go in, put in their investment preferences, find a short list of people, and then like it really control that process rather than having it be chance or at random or not having a large data set to make comparisons to. And that's the other side is like the comparison, right? Where we're seeing the market shift big time from like an LP and investor sentiment is in the past, it was heavy due diligence on deals, right? Now that we're seeing some fallout based on operations and how those were underwritten and things like that, we're seeing a lot more shift on the evaluation of the operator, right? Now people are focusing more on evaluating the jockey, not just the horse. But there's not a lot out there that isn't actually controlled by the GP. And so what we've created is like, okay, create a short list of your investment preferences or create a short list of GPs based on your investment preferences, read reviews from investors who have actually provided proof that they've invested with those GPs to validate what you're reading about and hearing about. And I don't just mean what you're hearing about from the GP, but there's a market narrative right now that the world is ending in commercial real estate. Is that actually what's happening? Like how do you get through this clickbait media stuff as well, right? I couldn't stand that. And so that's the main goal. And so when you think about that evaluation criteria, there are audited financials that you can do, right? You can go out, you can have background checks, you can have financials audited, but it also misses the experience, right? What are LPs experience during those marketed returns? Because I've talked to LPs that have gotten returns, right, as projected, but they'll never invest with that GP again. Like why? Why is that? And so there are different layers to this on the qualitative side that aren't publicly available, right? Like that you can't just pay to get, that are hidden. It's a private industry. And so the goal is to give the LP the full picture. It's like, yes, this was the journey to the financial side of things, but this is what the LP experienced along the way, and make your own decision based off of that. I'm not putting more weight on a review than a return. That's not for me to do. That's for the LP to decide, but just to make sure that they have the entire picture. On the GP side of things, we're seeing GPs really struggle to raise capital at the clip in which they were raising a few years ago. And like, why is that? Well, we're not seeing it be a lead issue, right? I've got visibility into a couple other companies where like lead volume is still pretty high, and it's a paid resource. You can go out and pay to source more leads. What's happening right now is it's just insanely expensive to get and convert the same amount of leads as it was a couple of years ago. Why is that? Well, it's because investors are are nervous, right? There's a wait and see mentality. There's stuff going on in the macro side of things. There's stories coming out of people wiping out common equity. And so they're taking longer to make decisions, and they're evaluating and scrutinizing deals and operators a lot more. And so what this does is it doesn't say, hey, like your cost of capital is going up because less people are converting. It's not because less leads are coming in. And so like, use the voice of your investor to differentiate yourself from your competition, to separate the things that you're doing from the media noise, and like build trust and credibility faster using your investor voice rather than your own influence and marketing material. And that's the big thing we're trying to do.
That was an amazing breakdown from both an LP and
Thanks.
a GP side. I just want to bring it back to the kind of LP journey, because again, a lot of the listeners will likely be looking and going through evaluating deals, evaluating operators. So when they go onto your website, they complete some investment criteria, right? Like these are the types of investments, whether it's equity deals, debt funds. I am expecting X returns. I want X IRR. And then what appears is a list of different GPs that they can then scroll through, identify. And within that, they then have reviews, right? Each GP will have a certain number of reviews, which are ultimately other investors that have invested with that GP. Is that all correct so far?
100% correct. Yeah. And also the GPs have the ability, if they claim their profile, meaning say like, hey, give me administrative access to the back end of this, they can add what they're raising for in their historical deals too. So the LPs can do these searches on the GP side as well as the deal or fund side.
Okay. And so when an LP has gone, okay, I've identified a GP that I ultimately want to reach out to and partner with, all of that information is also on Invest Clearly, correct? Like how to get in contact with these people.
Yeah. So that depends, right? It depends on, every single company has a website, right? And so some people, again, part of our monetization model is more things on the GP's profile. So if they upgrade, they can embed their calendar, they can embed their like portal, deal room, things like that. But every single profile has a website on it. Yeah.
And again, I've been on the website and I've used this. I'm just trying to give the listeners an opportunity to understand, like, these are the areas and the places you should really be going to identify opportunities or investments that you may ultimately want to invest in. So again, it really becomes a centralized hub for an LP investor to do some background checks on potentially an operator or a GP that they're looking to invest with, but it also gives them the opportunity to identify other GPs and operators that they may want to invest in that is within their investment and their buy box criteria specifically. So really Invest Clearly is kind of connecting the LPs with the GPs and the GPs with the LPs. I now want to turn this around into really kind of the transparency aspect of all of this, because really what all of this boils down to, Pat, and I think you kind of shared it right at the beginning, is you don't want hype to really drive people's decisions. You had a bad experience, you left your W-2, that didn't ultimately work out. So you've gone through an experience that wasn't a great experience, and you don't want that to shape other people. So many sponsors see transparency actually as a potential risk, but you see it as leverage. Like, why is that? And can you talk a little bit more about that as well?
Yeah, sure. So it does depend on the sponsor, right? We have people who really don't like us right now, and we have others who love us, and we're not doing anything different between the two of them. You know what I mean? So I think it really depends on. I think it depends on the company, right? But and I'll go down that path for a little bit. But in all honesty, on the transparency side, it doesn't matter if they like us or not. They have profiles on there, and real experiences will go on there, good or bad. And so we see it as leverage is because it is a differentiator, right? And it is how people are making decisions right now. Trust is at the forefront of decision making across the board. And I think like showing that I don't know how to phrase this well, but like open, not that it really matters because people are on there anyways, but like, hey, you can't influence these reviews. You can't take them down. You can't edit them. You can't really do anything. And so like there's a level of trust there that you can use as a tool. It's a conversion tool, right? Is like sure, you can go out and spend tens of thousands of dollars a month on Facebook ad or meta ads that drive leads to your your site and your CRM, but like these guys are searching outside of you. They're conducting searches once those leads go into your, what are they going to find? What is your organic brand? That's the big thing on the leverage side of things. For investors, it's leverage because they are seeing things that were never publicly available in the past, that were shut down behind closed communities. And so is that where you want me to answer on the GP side of things or the LP side of things?
Both.
Okay, yeah. So the leveraging point for the LP is again, it's a leverage of information that didn't exist in the past. Again, this is such a closed industry, and it's honestly some of the uphill battle that we have where nothing like this has ever existed in a private industry that wasn't behind a closed community that you pay for. We're the first ones to kind of bring it public, and so for the LPs, it's like, here's a set of information that no one's ever had access to before or someone had to pay big dollars for, that is now available to the retail individual for nothing. And so it really helps them with their like, minimized risk. And again, on that GP side, I think, like I was saying before, it is a differentiator. Like what your investors are saying is a differentiator right now. Using trust in your decision cycles are a differentiator because LPs want reference calls, referrals, things like this. Well, those are cherry picked. Right? They're cherry picked. I'm going to control what goes on my website. I'm going to control like who I put you on the phone with. This is an objective, trusted third party where GPs can't influence what goes up. And like, that's powerful to then turn to your investors and say, hey, go read the 10 people that just reviewed us on Invest Clearly, right? I can't influence what happens with them. They went through multiple steps to prove they're our investors in order to endorse us. And this is actually going to prove that I'm going to do what I say I'll do versus what I'm saying to you. You know what I mean? It's like what I tell investors all the time that are just getting started in this is get outside the influence of the people who have the most to gain financially from your decision, right? This is a way for them to do that at scale.
Yeah. And I think it's important. And one point that you touched on too, and I know this personally because I've written in reviews on Invest Clearly and also have gone through the platform for 7P Capital to be able to write a review, which I think is so important, is you, Pat, and your Invest Clearly team need to see proof that person who's submitting that review actually invested with that sponsor in a deal, and you have them send you like subscription docs or something, right, to show proof in the portal that they actually are an investor with you. Because naturally, people can go in and say, hey, can you write me a review, your friends, family, and whatever, just to get your reviews up, right? But you need proof in order to write that review, which I think is probably the most important thing about the platform because it needs to come from a real investor that's in a deal.
Yeah, 100%. And I moderate every one of those. It's like a role I haven't been able to give up because I'm sometimes I feel like I'm overly strict on it. Like there are plenty of reviews where they don't quite meet our criteria on the verification documents, but like maybe they would, but I'm completely unwilling to cross that line, right? Like I need to be able to look at this thing and say, hey, this is undeniable proof it's you. It's undeniable proof it's the company you're reviewing, and it's undeniable proof you are actually in an investment. And so I will get ones where names are blocked off. And so I try to go to the first place I try to go to is like, how is this fake? You know what I mean? Did someone forward you this? Did your name's not on this, but it is an investor update? Like, did someone send you this? So I think that, and I try and work with the LP. I reach out directly and I say, hey, this is what's missing. This would need to be fixed. Like, and there are plenty that haven't made it through. But yeah, that is something that is it's the foundation of our site, right? It's that verification process.
Yep. And again, I just think that's super important because it's raw, it's real, and it's transparent. And you would like to think as a general partner, you're doing everything you can on behalf of your LPs to provide them with a service and an investment that meets their expectations and communicates. And listen, we know in this industry and in private investing and in real estate in general, like not every deal goes to plan. There's something that always comes up. There's something that always happens. You're managing potentially hundreds of units with people living in these and people moving in and out. And like every type of situation can happen during a 5 to 7 year hold. But I think what also is important about your site is how is that general partner communicating with their investors? If you do pause distributions for 6 months, or 12 months because occupancy dropped. Why did occupancy drop? What are you working on? How are you communicating with investors? And so like things like that might have happened, but that LP might give you a raving review because like, hey, they were super transparent about what was going on at the property. They were doing everything in their power to make it right. And at the end of the day, right after these 5 years, the property exited and we did well. We did great. But
Yeah.
it wasn't the smoothest ride. So I think
Yeah.
like during these type of investments, it's great to have, you're going to have your rosy investments that just crush it out of the water, home runs.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, anyone can write a great investment about that. I hope we all get into those and stick in those
Yeah.
investments. But my point being like, as a limited partner and being in private investor, like there's going to be all types of situations. And I think it's more important from the general partner side of things, the communication aspect of what you're doing for those people that gave you money and invested in you and trusting in your company to do right by them.
Yeah, 100%. And those come out in reviews. Everyone, whenever I show this for the first time to people, it's always brought up like, hey, people are inclined to only write reviews when they have a negative experience. That's not true. Like the data, what we have is not showing that. And your situation that you just brought up literally just happened. We just had a review come through. It was a 5-star review. And in the review, they discussed a capital call. Like, hey, these guys issued a capital call. It was manageable. They laid out the business plan of what they were going to do with this money. And this is why we think it's going to come back around. You know what I mean? And it's so counterintuitive to some of the other things. But it's like, the point of the site is not to be the GP Reaper. I say this all the time, right? We want the real experiences. We want the good things to come out even during the hard times, and people understand it. It's not like this is a massive investment people are making, and it's in the investor's best interest to write a good review. And so it's not like people are going into here maliciously and ready to like scorch the earth. Again, sometimes they are, but overall it's a really contextualized review, like good, bad, this is what's going on, this is what we expect. And it's it's not like overly emotional stuff in here.
Yeah, that's great, Pat. And again, the platform is actually amazing. I think if you just compare this to what we all do every single day of our lives, if you're going to a restaurant, you're looking on Google, you're clicking on reviews, right? You are doing some level of due diligence on almost everything. If you're buying something, you are checking reviews almost at every point in your life at this point. So why would you not do that as well and have that capability to do that over a private investment, which often is probably something you're going to invest more money on than the things you do day in and day out, where reviews become so important and so almost second nature at this point to everything that we're doing as well. So the platform is amazing. I can't stress that enough.
Thank you.
For
Thank
anybody
you
listening to this, if you are in the process of evaluating, you are looking to do a private investment, have a look on Invest Clearly. And if you don't know which GPs, or you only have access to one or two, this is another opportunity to ultimately find and identify other investors. How do you think this will shape capital raising over the next 5 to 10 years, Pat? Because clearly there are some people that love it and some people that hate it. You could argue the people that hate it probably aren't as transparent as they should be, right? And the people that love it are probably the ones that go, I'm fine with you reading these reviews because the reviews are what I run my business by. So how do you think that will reshape capital raising?
For sure. My goal is for this to be integrated in every single investment decision out there, right? Long term, I want Invest Clearly to be synonymous with private placements. Hey, I'm not going to make this placement until I check Invest Clearly, right? Or you talk to a GP, send me your reviews on Invest Clearly. How that plays out, yeah, sure. I mean, I hope we are the reason some people can never raise capital again. Like, simple as that. I also hope that our company is the reason where people who may have never been able to compete on a marketing or visibility standpoint get found because of their reviews, right? I've got someone who's doing it right now. He's a small fund manager, and he sent us a testimonial that he's been able to compete against people 3 times I think he said 10 times his size, simply because of his reviews. And that's our goal as well. Where we want to go in the future, we're in real estate right now. I call it like real estate adjacent, but we plan to expand across asset class, core private equity, further into oil and gas, and just kind of rinse and repeat what we're doing now. But yeah, my plan is that this is in like a step in every single person's due diligence process.
And it should be. Again, to Chris's point, we make reviews on, $500 TV that we're going to buy, right?
Yeah.
But we're going to wire someone $50,000 of our cash and be like, yeah, we'll trust your word on this marketing slick. And
It's a wild
like
concept,
as you like to think though, like most people have your best intentions in mind, and people that are in this business do truly want the best for their investors, right? Like 95% of people probably do, right? And there's a small bit of people that are just maybe strictly in it for the money and then trying to just do deals, right, to make an income. But that's how we're trying to build our business, is in full transparency, open communications, text calls, emails, whatever you need, like be in contact with us and try to share as much information transparently and reporting as possible, so they know kind of just as much as we know, quite frankly. It's like, hey, this is what's going on with the deal. Like, you're a part owner as well. Like, here's what's happening. So, I've enjoyed using the platform as well. And, I look forward to getting more reviews of 70 Capital as we continue to grow our business. With that said, what are some crazy stories or GP, maybe LP stories you can share or come top of mind that you've seen in growing this platform since you started it? One, how old is it? And then two, is there anything that comes to mind from either a GP or LP standpoint that because you interact with everyone on the back end here, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just curious what you've had exposure to. That
Yeah. I've heard some insane stories like that. I've definitely heard some things where the unfortunate reality of what I do is oftentimes a lot of the things people tell me don't make it to platform, and some of the things I've heard are just like heartbreaking, right? Like, they are heartbreaking. I've got people who are reaching out that like they've put in their entire retirement account and it's gone, right? It's just gone. Now, I don't. It's always hard because it's like, okay, sure, this happened. How much due diligence did you do on there? How much do you have to take ownership of in that process, right? Because it's very easy to blame someone else, right? I don't know where that lies, but all I know is I've heard some pretty ruthless stories. I'll tell you some of the craziest things that I've been seeing that are publicly available are like these GPs that are openly threatening litigation against their LPs for writing on forums about their experiencing and claiming it's a breach of confidentiality. I think that's insane. I think that's pure and utter madness. Is people are strictly discussing stuff on public forums and they're like, hey, we're gonna subpoena you for whatever. It's just insane to me. That's the craziest thing I think, is that, like, you're if it's not, I get if it's blatant defamation and it's a wildly inaccurate, but if it's just someone out there talking and you're threatening them to silence them, madness, in my opinion. I have one LP who I love this story. Man, I don't know how to tell a story. So like, this individual is openly talking about the experience on one of the deals. So what happened was the GP rebranded, right? The GP rebranded from one company to another, and it was in the middle of the asset going completely underwater, getting wiped out, whatever it may be. And so this person started talking about it, and the GP came out and started like serving this person a cease and desist, and was like, this is inaccurate. We're a completely separate company. You're not. You could clearly see the portals aren't existed, and this person saved every email that the GP had ever sent them, and like one of them is, so-and-so has rebranded to so-and-so. They've got screenshots of the portal of themselves logged in, and they are not going quietly in the night. And so like, it to me, that is incredible, because it's this one individual and they're just like trying to like legally hammer this person, like, stop talking about it. And in a normal scenario, it's true. Like, they've got nothing, but the pure weight and fear that some of these GPs like put into people about not getting their money back is enough for them to withdraw, right? It's just as simple as that. But this person is just like, I'm not going anywhere, and refuse to stop posting about them. And again, I'm giving you like the horror stories here. Like, they're not all like that, and I never want to paint the picture of like our existence is to highlight those, but it's really tough. I hear a lot of stories too that if the majority of your audience is an LP, I have to say, like, really get educated. right? Like people are very quickly to blame the GP, but a lot of the things that I've heard have come down to lack of due diligence, lack of education of the LP, right? I had somebody who reached out to me, said, I'm about to lose 100K. I didn't think it was possible for real estate to ever go to zero. I thought it always had value. That person didn't understand how like the equity stack, they just didn't understand it. And so the fact that the asset price dipped 15%, wiped out their entire investment was like insane to them. And they didn't realize that was possible. They thought they had to lose the entire building in order for them to lose their money. And so it just kind of showed that, hey, you probably should have done a little bit more to understand what you were getting into before you got into it, instead of just putting all of the blame on the GP. Not saying the GP is not to blame for not operating it effectively, but like there's some ownership you got to take. Let me think what other stories. I heard another story from an individual where she was investing through a fund manager. She actually placed money with a fund manager. She was on a webinar and they were co-presenting the deal. The woman thought she was investing directly into the sponsor's deal. And so what happened was she invested through the fund of funds. The guy running the fund of funds went completely dark, shut down. No one can get a hold of them, no communication. So she went to the actual sponsor of the deal, and that person was like, hey, you're technically not an investor in our deal, so I can't tell you anything about it. And the woman thought she was investing in this deal. Now, since it was the actual fund manager's fund that invested in the deal, this GP doesn't have an actual line item of the individual being a participant in that fund, so can't share any information. So this person's in the dark, has no clue what's going to happen with their investment, and just like, I don't know what's going on here. But yeah, those are a couple.
Yeah,
those are.
It's just insane because I think it highlights some of what goes on in the back. And again, you're saying a lot of horror stories. Now, probably there's 85 to 90% great success stories of people investing in private deals, right? You can make better returns than typically in the public markets, right? You're invested in tangible assets. There's a list that we can go on for an hour on why you should invest in these private placements. Now, we've been talking for the last 10 minutes about some of these horror stories, but it happens, and we're trying to bring it to the surface so you understand that is a consequence potentially of investing in private placements where there's less due diligence, or I guess less publicity around what is public to you versus like investing in like a stock where you just go onto Robinhood and you can buy something and, you know, you have all these disclosures and, you know, you can just log into the account and see it every day. Right. So yes, there's a reason why the millionaires and billionaires of the world primarily are invested in private equity or type private placements. So just wanted to touch on that as well. There's a lot of positives, you know.
Yeah, I cherry picked a couple insane stories. It's so your audience knows the majorities on our reviews on our site are positive, right? Like it's not. I cherry picked a couple extremes. It's not reflective of the entire industry. I think there's like an entertainment value of some of the bad ones, which is kind of sad to say. But because there's obviously a real loss behind it, but it's what grabs attention on our site. But no, it doesn't reflect the majority of GPs on here are doing great, right? They've got great reviews, and the few don't reflect the entire.
Yeah, I think,
and that's my point. It's just like sharing that.
Yeah,
being the GP Grim Reaper is definitely not a title I think that you're trying to own.
No, not at all. Either. Not at all.
But again, I think it does highlight one of the key points, which is transparency, trust, openness, honesty. Like that's what everybody should be trying to promote. And that is really what is at the core foundation of your platform is, listen, don't hear it from the company themselves. Like hear it from people who have been there and done it and have invested through this, and look at their reviews. Right?
Or I always tell people like, or me. I feel like there's a lot of, you know, I don't want to bash communities, but like there's a lot of communities in there where like the individual running it wants to be the central like voice of authority, and like I don't want that, right? That's not like what I'm trying to represent in this. Like, don't listen to me, listen to all of these people who have gone through it all. You know what I mean? So that's just to kind of tack on to what you're saying.
Absolutely. So Pat, you are also an LP yourself in investments. You shared that. What are some of the due diligence steps you take as you're going through due diligence on an investment that you'll be making?
So I am not an LP in any of these deals. And it's actually a funny story. I kind of make a joke about this where I sort of built myself out of an investment vehicle. Because when I built Invest Clearly, it was because it was when I was considering becoming an LP and I was trying to learn how to become an LP. Now I'm like, all right, would it be perceived as a conflict of interest if all of a sudden I'm investing with these guys? Like, would people think like, oh, do they have a 5-star review because Pat invested with them? And so I don't think that's true, but I like stay away from it because I'm like, all right, I could sure go and evaluate all these things or just kind of focus on building this thing. So I have not invested in these, which kind of ties back to what I was saying of don't even listen to me when it comes to providing real feedback. It just use the platform. But again, the biggest thing that I think that I tell everyone, and it's an umbrella concept, but like during your due diligence, get outside of the person who has the most to gain. When evaluating them, right? Get outside of their influence. Use resources. It doesn't even have to be Invest Clearly, right? I never want Invest Clearly to be the start and end of someone's due diligence. It should 100% be a part of it. Check it. See if there's reviews. If there are, consider them. Read the whole thing. Don't just look at the rating, but go on to the other things. Use your networks. Find people. Read content. Do a million things that you can that get outside of the influence of the person that's most that's my biggest piece of feedback.
Yeah, and it's great feedback from surface level, because if there's no one, if that person has nothing to gain from it, then they should be giving you complete right transparency. And I think what the platform does is help, again, a lot of our listeners, LPs, go on the platform, check out the deals, right? There's a deals tab, I believe, at the top, right? There's multiple sponsors posting multiple deals, and you can see the structures and what they're investing in. And just from an education standpoint, you could start to get more well-versed on what offerings are out there in this space, even if you're not looking to invest right now. And I think that goes back to the educational piece. In addition to finding out other GPs and booking time with them and just doing due diligence and networking on some of the other offerings and groups that are doing private placements and private deals, because it definitely is a great investment avenue to explore. But like anything, you want to make sure you're well educated. So Pat, where can people get in touch with you about whether they're an LP and they maybe just want to learn a little bit more about what your platform has to offer, or if they're a GP that are listening or they're up and coming and maybe they've only done a couple of deals and like, I shouldn't put it on the platform yet. Like, where can people get in touch with you to talk about next steps?
Sure. My email is pat@investclearly.com. The website is investclearly.com. And then I'm also super active on LinkedIn. So, and any one of those, you'll get me.
Awesome. Yeah, I think this platform is very helpful for both sponsors that are operating deals and want to connect with LPs and show other LPs what they've done and their track record of success. But I think just as important, I think as a limited partner, if you're looking to evaluate deals and see what other great sponsors are out there around the country that you might not have heard of, it's a great platform to really see transparent reviews from real investors and real deals. So definitely reach out to Pat. Obviously he's great. He's easy to talk to, shared a bunch of great information. He's building a platform that hopefully the whole private community can really embrace as the years move forward, which I think they will, because this is something that everyone should want.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you guys. That's great. Yeah. I'm available. Reach out.
Thanks, Pat.
Awesome. Well, Pat, thanks for coming on. We will talk to you soon, and we look forward to getting more reviews on Invest Clearly here in the near future.
Thanks, guys. For sure.
Thanks, yes.